Folks, we'll call the October 15, 2013 meeting of the Iredell County Board of Commissioners to order. And join us in our invocation, please. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening again thanking for the opportunity to serve you and to serve the folks in Iredell County. We pray for wisdom for those who lead our nation this evening, that the present impasse will be settled, and that the angst and the uncertainty will dissipate. We just pray that there will be some continuity in our government. These sporadic periods of crisis are making us all feel weary and creating a lot of turmoil. And I pray they'll resolve their differences. I pray you to be with our troops around the world this evening as they protect us, that you just watch over them, that you'd keep them from harm, that you would heal those who've been wounded, and you'd especially minister to those families who've paid the ultimate sacrifice, that you would comfort them. We pray you bless this county and bless us as we serve it, bless its citizens. We ask it for your sake and in your name. Amen. Excuse me. Join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of our country. Mr. Smith, are there any adjustments to this agenda from the staff this evening?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make two adjustments. First is removing the economic development item under closed session. And the second is adding an item under administrative matters, and this would be G, which would be an improved budget amendment number 11, and this is a request from the Health Department.
Okay. And that was removing the economic development.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Are there any adjustments from any members of the board this evening? If not, floor is open for a motion to adopt this agenda.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve this agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm not aware of any appointments before the board this evening, so we'll move directly to public hearings. This time we'll declare this meeting to be in a public hearing in consideration of citizen input on the FTA 5310 Elderly and Disabled Grant Application for ICATS. Mr. Stockleather.
Chairman, Commissioners, it's good to be here tonight. The first item on the agenda is for our 5310 grant. That is the grant that provides transportation for elderly and disabled members of Iredell County. This particular grant will provide transportation for dialysis purposes and some personal trips throughout the county. We are requesting a $200,000 grant. $100,000 match for this grant would come from funds that we generate through contracted service fees. At this time, I'd like to, and through rope funds. At this time, I'll take any questions y'all might have.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Stockleather?
Was it 2,166 citizens or trips that y'all took last year under this?
That's trips. So,
trips?
Yep. So, and because in the past, this grant has been only for dialysis. We've expanded it to include personal trips because we've had a real outcry from the seniors of the community saying that they'd like to be able to take more than one a week, which is what they're currently allowed through the grant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in regard to this matter? If you would come forward and state your name, please. Okay. We'll declare the public hearing closed, and I believe we need to approve this. Is that right, Mr. Stockleather?
That's correct.
Okay. Floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Griffin. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Again, we'll declare this meeting to be in a public hearing in consideration of the citizen input on the FTA 5311 Administrative and Capital Grant application for ICATS. Mr. Stockleather?
The 5311 grant is primarily for administration costs and capital costs for ICATS. The match is going to come from ROPE funds on this. ROPE funds are through a state-funded program, so those funds will be coming to the county any day now for this fiscal year. We don't perceive any tie-up with the federal shutdown with these funds. The amount is substantially less than last year because we have less vehicles that we are able to replace. There's a timetable for how often we can replace them based on mileage, so that's why this grant's less than the previous year's grant.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Stockleather, in regard to this matter? Okay. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in regard to this issue? If you would, come forward and state your name for the record, please. If not, we'll declare this public hearing closed and the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Griffith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We'll declare this meeting to be in a public hearing in consideration of citizen input on FTA 5316, Job Access and Reverse Commute Grant Application for ICATS. Mr. Stockleather?
Board, the 5316 grant is for our job access and reverse commuting grant. It provides employment trips to people who live in the county coming to the city for work or live in the city going out to the county for work. This grant is going to be targeted primarily at people who go to work before 8 o'clock and after 5 o'clock. The 50% match will come from ROPE, and this is the same amount that we requested last time this grant came through.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Stockleather? Is there anyone here who wishes to speak in regard to this issue? If you would, come forward and state your name, please. We'll declare this public hearing closed and the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Griffith. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to administrative matters. And Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first items, A, B, and C, are all from the Sheriff's Office, and Rick Eads is here to make those requests, and each one of these are budget amendments.
Good afternoon. On the first item, the Sheriff's Office is wishing to appropriate $45,271 received from the Coverdale Crime Lab grant, with the proceeds to be used for the purchase of analysis equipment. So it's grant monies that we received, just wishing to use it for analysis equipment.
Analyzing what?
That would be for it was a crime lab grant. I don't have the specifics on exactly what we're going to be purchasing.
Says blood alcohol, I think.
Yeah, I think we just got certified in the blood alcohol stuff. I don't know that that's what it's for. I'm just saying that that's what it's going to be used for, is the crime lab.
It requires no local match.
That's correct.
Any other questions of Mr. Eads? Hearing none, the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve amendment number 8.
Vice Chairman Norman offers a motion for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Second item is for the purpose of transferring $5,000 from C's funds to Scan Incorporated.
Okay. Any questions on this matter? If not, the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve budget amendment number 9.
Okay, Vice Chairman Norman offers a motion for approval. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Third and final item is to transfer $56,000 from federal equity funds to the depreciable assets for utility vehicle upgrades for the Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Any questions? Not, the floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve budget amendment number 10.
Okay, motion to approve budget amendment number 10. made by Vice Chairman Norman. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, sir.
Item D is a request for approval of the April 2013 Tax Administration Records Retention and Disposition Schedule and September amendments. And Bill Fritchess will make that request.
Good evening. Every few years, the North Carolina Department of Cultural Resources amends the records retention schedule, and in order for tax administration to properly dispose of obsolete records, we need your approval. Basically, the only thing they've amended has to do with the disposition of privilege licenses and a few other minor things, beer and wine tax records, and request your approval.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Burgess? If not, floor is open for a motion.
Could we approve the amendments to the records disposition
Okay.
schedule?
Motion for approval from Commissioner Boone. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And item E is a request from the Tax Department for approval of the September refunds and releases. And these are in order, and there are no county commissioners' names on the rolls.
Okay. Floor is open for a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Has a motion for approval from Vice Chairman Norman. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
F is a request for approval of the October 1, 2013 minutes.
Okay.
Move we approve.
Have a motion to approve from Commissioner Boone. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries unanimously.
And item G, which was added, is a request from the Health Department to approve Budget Amendment Number 11 for the utilization of Medicaid max funding for potential WIC uses. And Jane Murray will make that presentation.
Good evening. Didn't think I'd be before you this soon, but the Board of Health, when they met last Thursday evening, heard information about our WIC program. That Tuesday we had received notification that because of the government shutdown, we could no longer issue vouchers. And we serve about 3,800 Iredell residents. So we were very concerned knowing that all of our salaries are paid for out of WIC funds as well as the vouchers. We wanted to be able to continue the program in the event we are notified that we no longer have salary dollars for the program. Since we wrote you the memo later on Friday morning, they did release more funds for the vouchers, but we're still being told by the end of the month there probably will not be any more dollars available unless the government shutdown changes for the vouchers and for staff salaries. And the important part of continuing to be able to serve our clients is we can still certify them for WIC services, we can still do nutrition counseling, make health care referrals so that if the dollars do return for the vouchers, they immediately can be given vouchers. If we have to send our staff home, and we're talking about 13 employees, then there could be months of waiting for individuals to come back in and get recertified for WIC. So the Medicaid maximization dollars, there's about $2 million that the Health Department has saved and not had to utilize that they get every year from Medicaid. And we would like the ability to allocate $100,000 in the event it's needed to be able to continue to have our staff, and that's 2 months' worth of salaries. If this happens, it may not happen. I would be thrilled if it doesn't, but it would truly do a disservice to our community if we were not able to have them ready for vouchers if they had to wait months and months to be able to get back in if we had to send staff home. So I'll be glad to entertain any questions.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Murray?
What did you say the balance in Max was?
Medicaid maximization dollars every year for our Medicaid clients. They look at the services we provide, and
I'm aware of what it is. I was just asking what the balance was.
what the balance was.
Yeah.
It's a little over $2 million.
It was, Mr. Griffith said it was $2,120,000.
It increased a lot. I asked that question early this year and was told it was, my memory serves, maybe $600,000 or $700,000. Either somebody was mistaken or it's increased quite a bit since then. I asked that at one of the public meetings here.
That was Thursday evening when we had our Board of Health meeting. We had.
I'll take your word for it, but it's, I was surprised it was that much more than what I was told a few months ago.
In the event that the government shutdown continues, Will you be before us requesting more money to continue certifying clients when there are no vouchers?
If a government shutdown continues for 2 months, I think the whole community as a whole will have grave concerns. And at that point, right now, we're hearing food banks are almost empty because of the difficulty in getting food, and particularly for our infants and formula. So I would hope that this is going to be resolved. I would actually hope that we wouldn't even have to utilize this money. If we do, and the federal funds are released, then we would replace the $100,000 that we would use.
If the federal funds are not released and the WIC program is not funded at the end of December, do you anticipate coming back asking for more money to continue having staff certify people for a program that is not available at that time?
We would discuss that at the Board of Health and try to make a decision that, we believe would be best for the community.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just make a comment. As I understand the situation, we're doing I'm saying this so that everybody can understand, because there have been a lot of conversations that have gone on. But basically, the Medicaid max is money that we typically have gotten as a percentage from the Medicaid program, and we historically have not used that to subsidize operations, but we've tended to buy equipment with it that's been used by different functions or subdivisions or whatever of the health department. And because the way the shutdown is being described, as I understand it, that no budgets are being cut, the monies just aren't being dispersed. So the fact that they have money allocated for salaries, which is kind of crazy that people stay home, but then they're going to get the money anyway. I need a deal like that. But anyway, so we believe that our risk is quite low in that when the shutdown ends, that those federal funds that can be applied to salaries will be the total amount we would have gotten anyhow, and the money that we've used from the Medicaid Max Fund to pay salaries, we can then take the salary money that we get from the Fed to repay the Medicaid Max, so that when this is all said and done, we end up at the same place that we would have been had there never been a shutdown. And I'm inclined to support it for that reason. Mm-hmm. And however, I just want to make it kind of clear that my position is that we get to play that shell game, and if there's a risk involved, we think that it's a very, very small risk, mm-hmm. that we're taking that risk with Medicaid Max funds and not with county fund balance or taking money out of the rec department or the library or the sheriff's department or something to play some of these accounting games to, when I say games, I shouldn't use that word, to shift these monies, trying to make this where there's no bumps in the road, so to speak. So
that's correct.
I don't want to anybody think this is kind of a blanket approval for doing these kind of things in the future. And if it continues, I feel sure it's going to disrupt people and operations. But in this particular case, I think our risk is quite low that somehow we're going to end up on the short end of the stick. So for that reason, if you need a motion, I'll make the motion for you. Or actually,
or let me make sure there's no more questions. Ms.
Okay,
Murray.
sure.
Are there any other questions, Ms. Murray? If not, now the floor is open for a motion.
It's Budget Amendment 11.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make the motion that we approve Budget Amendment 11 that agrees with the Board of Health motion to allocate up to $100,000 of Medicaid max savings from the Health Department for WIC salaries if needed.
Okay.
I have a couple of comments. on this issue. The health department is not the only human services department that's seeing some impact from the budget situation in Washington. The social service department funds or it administers daycare for about 950 children. They're federal funds, and local DSS administers that program. Apparently, these funds will very shortly be cut off. At their meeting last week, the Social Service Board asked the county to do what's being proposed with the health department to advance some funds that would, be paid back when the situation was resolved. I don't think they put a specific dollar amount on it. And the only difference was that the Social Service Board doesn't have a fund like Medicaid maximization, so they were asking for it to be taken from the general fund. The majority consensus of this board seemed to be that it would be setting a really bad precedent to dip into our general fund, even if it were just for a temporary loan. And even though I know that some people would suffer a hardship if the shutdown continues that are receiving daycare and so forth, I think my fellow board members were probably right on that. That's a tough decision, but I think they probably are right in thinking that it would set a very bad precedent to dip into general fund money to make up for federal funds that are not available at the present time. But the problem I have is that I don't think there's much difference between the DSS request and the health department request. The only real difference is that the health department does have a separate fund. But as a practical matter, and I was on the health board for a number of years and saw how the money was spent. Some of the Medicaid maximization money probably was spent on equipment that maybe the county wouldn't have otherwise bought. But I think the majority of that money was spent on items that we would have had to pay for out of the general fund had that money not been available. So I think we're really splitting hairs to distinguish between these two situations, and that's the problem. That's doesn't have anything to do with you or your department, but that's the concern I have is that we might be doing something for one agency and not for another. It seems like maybe we should treat both situations equally. And I asked our manager to take a survey and see what other counties were doing, and he went to some effort to do that, got results back from 20 counties in the state, and there are really only 2 counties that were definitely planning to use county money or some sort of money to supplant, or as a loan to supplant federal funds. A couple of others are considering doing it or say they might. And of the 20 counties that were surveyed, 16 either have not made any sort of decision or they've decided not to advance any money from the county. So that's the situation I have here, but I will ask you a question. My understanding is that funds are available to fund WIC through October 31st.
That's what we've been told, but last week on Tuesday at 4:07, we got an email that said we can no longer issue vouchers at close of day at 5 o'clock. So honestly, they tell us now that funds could possibly be available, but it could change any day.
Yeah, well, that's true of everybody else. I was told shortly before this meeting that there may be some extra funds available at DSS, but I don't know how much, or
right.
Probably help them some. I don't know how much. So the reason I asked that is I was wondering if it was necessary for us to take action tonight. Maybe we could see what the situation is at our next meeting. If I had to bet, I'd bet the odds are better than 50-50 that the situation in Washington would be resolved before the October 31st. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think there's a good chance that it would be. And in that case, it would not be necessary for us to take action, and we would, not be setting a precedent or anything. I realize it's a tough situation for everybody involved. I understand that. I do have a little bit of a problem with equity between the agencies.
Well,
Oh.
the sheriff's department, we just gave them great latitude to spend a lot of money because they have access to funds that other departments don't have. I feel sure that health department would love to have, to have seized funds as a revenue stream where we would give them great latitude. I feel sure that the Department of Social Services or mapping or planning, all of them would love to have some other revenue stream that kind of comes with, that not necessarily from county dollars. So to me, that's just kind of the way the ball bounces. Some departments have a little bit of latitude there, and other departments don't.
Well, as you know, I've had some reservations about some of the requests from the sheriff's department myself, so.
I got a couple comments. The reason we have this discussion is, quite frankly, there hasn't been a federal budget for 5 years. That's the reason you keep having these eruptions every few weeks, every few months. There has not been a federal budget adopted in this country for 5 years. So they raise the debt limit, and then they run out of borrowing capacity, and then they got to go through this dog and pony show every few weeks, every few months. There's been a number of budgets over those 5 years that have been passed out of the House of Representatives, never taken up for a vote in the United States Senate. That's not a partisan statement. That's just a historical fact. In those 5 years, the president has actually introduced one budget on time, and that budget went down in flames in the U.S. Senate 99-0. Nobody voted for it. So you've got a great deal of polarization, but I don't know how you can have a country that can operate in any kind of sane matter for 5 years without a budget. That's the reason this insanity goes on. There's a great vacuum of leadership. You got a similar problem with the state budget, in that they take legislative action that impacts our budget. What we have to do as a county, in my mind, is when we adopt a budget, we have to limit the impact of other governing bodies' actions on this budget as much as we can. You have to maintain, to the best of your ability, some kind of firewall, because if you do not maintain budgetary discipline, you do not maintain continuity, you do not maintain a tax rate. I think if you want to speak of equity between departments, that's fine. I think the most clearly delineated point that you can declare equity is by establishing a firewall as much as you can between the county budget and the actions of other legislative bodies. If one agency is limited in the degree of latitude that they have and another one is not, that's not the fault of this body. That is the fault of the way the law was enacted when those programs were first administered. And I will vote for this request, but my line in the sand and my firewall is going to be to maintain the integrity of the county budget. We've got a whole other responsibilities other than this, some of which have a lot to do with public safety. And we're going to inhibit the ability to perform those duties if we do not maintain this firewall on the county budget at every opportunity that we can. So to me, that maintains equity in the matter as far as the treatment, and it maintains the integrity of the budget. It gives Ms. Murray and her staff some latitude to deal with it that's afforded to them by law, which will result of no action taken by this board. But again, if this problem is to go away, the federal government needs to adopt a budget. And they haven't done it in 5 years. Okay. So do we have a motion?
Now, David, I think you asked for us to not, if we don't need to vote on it now, let's not vote on it now.
I think that might be a good idea. I could make a motion to postpone it.
There's already a motion on the floor.
I know, but a
does
motion
that
to
miss-
postpone is a procedural motion that takes precedence over the main motion.
I think the concern that the Board of Health had is, given what happened last week with 53 minutes notification that there were no more funds, that trusting that there'll be funds available through the end of the month, they were concerned about that. And so that's why we decided to come tonight and not wait 2 weeks.
But the consensus of this board was to approve.
Of the Board of Health?
Yes.
Of this board would be to grant her request, but if as a matter of precedent setting, Mr. Boone would like for us to wait so that maybe we don't have to vote on it at all. We can put it off for 2 weeks. That still comes under your October 31st deadline. So as a matter of end results, I don't think it would change what you would be able to do or have to do. But it would prevent us, if we were to delay it, it would prevent us from having to maybe take an action that we'd not want to defend later, or don't want to talk. We don't want to necessarily have people misinterpret it as a precedent. Did I describe that right, David?
Pretty much.
All right.
My concern is if somebody's on the health board who was charged with making recommendation and the smooth operation of that agency, then if the funding stops the end of October and we don't meet again till first week in November.
You'd have a gap of about 5 days if that happened,
And excuse me, because I'm still learning the payroll system, but I think people have already worked time that they need to be compensated for that will already push us close to October for now, and that was the issue. Am I correct?
Oh, okay.
I
So we
I
don't
would
meet on
think,
the,
yes,
that's right.
that would
I
be
was-
correct.
I was thinking we met on the 29th and we don't.
That was, we discussed that greatly in our Board of Health meeting, that time worked already will be compensated later on in the month. So if they worked additional time, basically there would be no funds to compensate them because of the way the payroll runs.
Okay. I'll vote for the motion.
It got real confusing on the Board of Health, and finally, I said, let's quit talking payroll cycles, let's talk days and dollars. And that's how we arrived at this determination.
I don't know what will happen, but if you pass this, you may be doing something that's not really, and it turns out it's not really necessary to do anyway.
I agree with what Mr. Robertson says earlier. I think that in all likelihood, the matter will be resolved and we won't have to spend any money. If we do spend any money, I don't think it'll be a lot of money, and I think we'll be reimbursed.
Medicaid max will be reimbursed.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
Not the county, because none of our money will be used.
Right.
Okay, so we do have a motion for approval, is that correct? I got lost.
No, we did not.
No, we're going to make it, then we talked about it.
Okay, so the floor is open for a motion.
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Okay, motion for approval comes from Commissioner Robertson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1. Thank you, Ms. Murray.
Thank you.
Okay. Announcements of vacancies occurring on boards and commissions. Personnel Advisory Committee, we have one announcement. And the Local Emergency Planning Committee, we have one announcement. Appointments to boards and commissions. Partners Behavioral Health Care Board of Directors this evening. We have two appointments. Floor is open for nominations.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Gail Mitchell and Matt McCall.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? If not, I move we close the floor to nominations and appoint these two folks by acclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimous. Is there any unfinished business to come to our attention? Under public comment period this evening, we have Kimberly Clark. Ms. Clark, if you come forward, according to our rules of procedure, you can address the board for up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm representing Avalon Farm, and I think all of you or some of you have been to Avalon Farm, and some of you have been called by Avalon Farm and have not returned phone calls. And some of you have been present there recently, and some of you have been present there in the past few years. And I want to give you a little snippet of Avalon Farm. It's a 501c3 nonprofit entity. We provide educational programs for children who are at risk with special needs and their families. Our programs are educational for self-growth and development, and as well we provide programming for children in a leadership and intern development capacity. Our education process is facilitated outdoors and hands-on training in nature and with our animals. And all of our work, again, is done mostly outdoors. We do have a wellness center at the facility where we overnight house children in crisis. We also provide a place for animals for rescue and rehab, or as the statute puts it, the humane treatment of animals. Avalon Farm has been in Iredell County now for 8 years. We landed here in 2006. And in 2006 through 2010, we had a property tax exemption battle, which I think some of you are aware of. In 2010, we were approved by Doolittle, the former tax assessor, to be property tax exempt. And so we were property tax exempt for 2010 through 2013. And then this year in 2013, all of a sudden, we're no longer property tax exempt, and we have had a lot of correspondence and a lot of confusion around the ping pong match that has been played about our property tax exempt status. As well, much correspondence has taken place from Avalon Farm to different people on your board and in the county, and this entire county commissioner board has not had knowledge of all of the correspondence. Further, Avalon Farm has lost contracts, grants, and business due to Iredell County's tax office inquiries into our relationship with these business entities. Excuse me. And the property tax exempt issue has grown now to the point that we're at the Property Tax Commission at the state level, and I think most of you are aware of that. Further, Bill Pope has an interest in this matter regarding Avalon Farm because his firm is suing Avalon Farm on behalf of a plaintiff. And we have had many meetings where Bill Pope has been present in hearings in that lawsuit as well. Bill Pope has been present in the county meetings regarding the property tax exempt issue, which we find very conflicting. And we have spoken that several times to you individually and publicly. So Avalon Farm is offering one last opportunity to have you all come together as a group, as you're required to do by statute. And Avalon Farm doesn't feel that you've ever, as a group, discussed this issue. We feel like it's been discussed privately and not as a group and a board commission. And so we would ask you to reconsider your position and moving forward with spending tax dollars, since we're speaking of federal budgets not ever being in place and having lots of financial constraints on the county and state as well, that you would reconsider your position of continuing to fight Avalon Farm for their property tax exempt status at the state level. And it seems to us that it is backwards to have a nonprofit entity which provides programs to residents in your community, mostly at no charge, to fight us and to have us spend monies that we raise to hire an attorney to go to the state level to prove once again our worth and our value in the community as a viable nonprofit tax-exempt entity. There's something inherently wrong in that scenario, and Avalon Farm thanks you for your reconsideration.
Thank you, Ms. Clark.
No comments?
I personally have none at this time. Is there pending litigation in regards to this that may involve the county?
There's no litigation, but as Ms. Clark mentioned, we are, or she has appealed our most recent Board of E&R Equalization and Review decision to the State Property Tax Commission.
Is that the proper chain of authority to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
The proper chain is the Board of Equalization makes a ruling, and if the ruling does not, if the person does not like the ruling, they do not come to the commissioners, they go up this chain. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And the commissioners cannot override the Board of Equalization?
That is my understanding, yes.
So there's
Is
not-
it an understanding or is that law?
Well, let me call Bill Furchess up if you don't mind, or Malia Miller, just to make sure that I'm answering your questions correctly. Do you mind, Bill? Or Malia?
I mean, the place to take the concerns and the place to have the case heard is where it is supposed to be, where it is currently happening.
That is correct.
While I empathize with Ms. Clark, there's nothing that the commissioners can do. This is the process that you must go through. As painful as it is, and as much as you may not like to hear it, unfortunately, that is the proper chain of command. And that is the way that the system is set up, and that is where you need to go. And that is where it is. You'll need to wait for a decision.
You concur
I
with that?
again will reiterate that the entire Board of Commissioners did not know anything about any of this before it went to the Board of Equalization and Review. Only one or two knew.
What I'd like to say is the Board of Equalization and Review has been appointed to hear these cases, and that was the proper channel. The decision has been rendered, and it has been appealed to the Property Tax Commission, and it is in process. So that's where that stands. It's not typical that the Board of Commissioners would have known about this prior to the Board of Equalization and Review hearing it.
And Ms. Clark, I think this almost hurts your case because it almost appears that you're trying to bypass the path that was put there so that you could be heard, so that you could have a voice, and so that a decision could be reached. And
I'm not about bypassing. I'm attempting to give another opportunity to this board to be coherent and do what a board is supposed to do that we feel like was never done.
And
Can I,
the board was supposed to put a board in place to hear these concerns, which was done. And then there are checks and balances along the way to where you can be heard, and that's where the process is at. And we need to see what that ruling is and see what they find. And it's unfortunate that you found yourself here, but that is the process that it goes through. And
let's have a point of clarification. And I'll ask either one of these folks on our staff to respond to it. The process, the first stop in the process is the Board of Equalization and Review. If the taxpayer is dissatisfied with the decision rendered, then they appeal to the Property Tax Commission in Raleigh? Okay. All right. At any time in this process, does this Board of Commissioners have any jurisdiction, any authority to intervene in this process?
And that was my question. Is that an understanding or is that a statute? And if it's a statute, I would like to have that sent to me.
Can someone respond to that?
I'm not sure that it's spelled out specifically as a statute. It is probably a combination of several statutes that comprises. I'll be happy to try to provide you with whatever I can. I'll look for that tomorrow.
Would you read over those statutes, refer to any of those in your communication, Ms. Clark, that are relevant in a synopsis of your opinion as to how you arrived at that opinion?
I'm not sure what your question is, sir.
I'm speaking to our staff here. I would like them to review all statutes that are relevant to the issue before us this evening. And with a synopsis of those statutes and their relativity to this, explaining their position as to how they arrive at the conclusion that this board has little or no authority in regard to this matter, and communicate that to Ms. Clark.
Yes, sir.
Okay? All right.
Thank you.
I would be interested in hearing that too. The only comment I have is I am one of the commissioners that communicated with you and returned the calls and, went to the farm and looked at it. And I think you have some valid points, but this county appoints the Equalization and Review Board to rule in these cases. I know several of the members of that board, and they are good, honest people who I think would do their very best to apply to the law to the facts of a particular case. Now, you may disagree with their ruling. Apparently, they had some mixed opinions about it, too, because my understanding is that exemption was declined by a 3-2 vote, so there were evidently some different opinions on the E&R board itself. I don't know what the state will rule in this case, but it's in kind of a judicial situation now. We're a legislative body, and I don't know that, at this point it's really proper for us to even publicly comment on the specifics of the case. Agreed.
I think that there is an opportunity for that to be looked at, and that's what we're asking.
Okay.
And I think the statutes will clearly show that as well.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what
Thank you.
specifics of the statutes are.
Okay. Is there any new business to come to our attention? County Manager's report.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, at this point, I'll move, we'll go into closed session under General Statute 143-318-11A3 relating to attorney-client, and General Statute 143-318-11A6 personnel. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. There'll be action taken as a result of our closed session. At this point, I would like to offer a motion that effective December the 2nd, we appoint Retha Gaither as our clerk to the board. That will coincide with the retirement of Miss Jean Moore. That salary be established at $50,000 annually, but that this salary adjustment take effect November 1st, because she will share duties as clerk appointee and continue to serve as the county manager secretary, and she'd be given that increase in pay to compensate her for the difficulty in that transition. And again, that her appointment take effect December the 2nd at an annual salary of $50,000. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate both of these ladies, and there'll be ample time, I'm sure, in the future to congratulate them. Anything else? I offer a motion, we adjourn. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.